All right, you guys asked for it. Did a poll to find out what you guys wanted to do for a shorter video, and overwhelming majority was clouds. So we're going to work on some clouds today, and we'll just go ahead and get right into it. As you can see, I'm working with my mixed multimedia pad here. I pre-primed my canvas. This gives me a perfect opportunity to show you my favorite little trick here. You take a slide you a piece of wax paper underneath the page you're working on. It keeps those pages from sticking together when they dry. Now we have 4 sections here. We're going to do this 4 different ways. I'm going to do a cloud directly on my pre-primed canvas. Then we're going to go with the wet on wet. Then we got two different paints so we can do different consistencies. So I'm using the apple barrel liquid crafters, the Galeriariste. That's a pretty thick, even though it's in a bottle, it's pretty thick liquid, and the Arteza. Now, all of our whites are going to be titanium white. We're using the bright blue in the apple barrel. We're using the phthalo in the Arteza. And we're using the deep cyan in the Galeriariste. And just to give you a quick comparison here, the apple barrel is very fluid. You might be able to see it moving. The Galeriariste here stays in place. We've used that one before. It's real thick, slow drying paint. And then this is the Arteza, and it seems to be a little more, just as creamy as the Galeriariste, but a little more fluid. Of course, I just got my 1-inch brush for brushing our blues on when we change blues. My blending brush. I've got a couple of them just so I don't have to constantly clean them. Number 4 fans. And just in case we want to add a little darkness, I've got the palette knife here to do some mixing. Okay, so on this first one here, like I said, we're just going to go directly on our pre-primed canvas. Remember, you need to have 2 buckets of water, one to stay clean and one to clean with. Go ahead and get that blending brush good and damp. You don't want it dripping. And it's gonna stick your fan brush wherever you want and just kind of swirl it in. Just a general idea. Okay. You're gonna take your blending brush. You're gonna swirl it. Let it blend however you feel like it needs to blend. Once you get an idea of, once it's starting to look like you kind of want it to look, give it the lift, give it the smooth. And maybe we want a little bit of darkness down in there. So we'll just touch our blue. Make sure you mix it. I almost forgot that step. So you end up with a lighter blue. And you're just going to kind of dance that in the same way you did your white. I'll follow the same basic shape. Get it in there however thick or thin you want it. And same process. That one might be a little hard to see. That's fine. Let some of that soak out of there. Now we're going to put down a base coat of our bright blue, and we'll do one on top of that. This will make this one easier to see because it's a darker blue. Yeah, it should be good enough. We just want an area to be able to show. That should be good enough. Remember to work with a wet brush as much as possible. Load that fan brush up with white. And like I said, just kind of dance it on there. However you feel like it needs to dance. A little bit of a blend. So you get a little more effect when it's wet paint on wet canvas. Actually makes it easier to overly blend it and blend it away. We'll go into our dark color that we just made on our other one. I had to pick up a little more blue. And then you're just gonna kind of dance it. General idea. Leave that blue in there. Got some of your highlight. And just where you want the tops to be. Kind of the same routine. Swirl it in. You don't want to blend it. You just want to soften it. And make your brush strokes match whatever your brush stroke is for your piece. If you're running your brush strokes that way, you want your final brush stroke to run that way. If you're running them this way, that's of course the way you want your final brush stroke to go. This is going to be interesting. I got paint on the handle of my other brush. That's been my experience so far. Those of you that are coming from oil painting, the Galeriariste is going to be a good starting point for you. We're going to go with the Galeriariste next. I'm just going to go into our cyan. This is our Galeriariste, and you can see how thick that is. You want to thin it down pretty good. And just kind of get your base color on there. See, I thinned it too much there. Just get your base color on there. And then it's just going to be the same process. That's going to take a little. The reason I say this, the Galeriariste is good if you're coming from oil painting, is it does stay wet longer. You're just going to load that fan brush up with your white, just like you did before. You're just going to do the same process. And dance it in there. Let's give him a little piece here at the top. Remember, this Galeriariste is thick, so you may have to thin it out a little bit more. If you're used to using acrylics and you want something with a longer dry time, this will have to be thinned out more. Same motions. Right, swirling. Take it as far down as you want. Try not to go up, but take it as far down as you want. Remember not to blend it out all the way. Oh, we still got it fairly clean. We'll just put them highlight spots back on there where we think it needs a highlight. We'll pick up a little bit of that blue. We'll darken this up just a little bit. We just want to create a different shade of blue than our background and a little bit darker than what we got here. And you can use any colors you want. Doesn't have to be blues. Make pink clouds, orange clouds, purple clouds, whatever color cloud you want to make. Doesn't have to be blue. Blue is just natural, so that's what I'm trying to show you. And this I wound up having to go pure cyan. It's just wanting to blend in with the background, the main cloud too much. And again, I've had trouble with the Galeriarte before because I wasn't expecting that faster dry time. And you may have noticed we're using a different easel this time. This easel is the one that we're planning to retire soon. I was just knocking some of that excess paint out of it while I was reminding you this is the easel we plan to retire. Now we'll try out the Arteza. And this is the first time I'm trying this one out too. I said it looks to be a little more fluid than the Galeriarte, so I'm not expecting it to need to be thin so much. And this is a phthalo. This is what a lot of times you're going to be using in your skylines anyway, is a phthalo. So that'll be more of a representation of what you might actually do. Again, I thinned it up too much, but remember I just said this is the first time I've used this brand. It didn't take as much to thin it out too much. I'm just making sure I got good coverage where I want it to be. I'm going to get my brush strokes all run. I keep my brush strokes running horizontal, so that's all I'm doing there. Same method. You can get as crazy as you want with it. Blender's getting a little dry on us. Just a light touch, just enough to move your white paint around. And then you create your shape, which you're primarily doing with the way you lay it in. But if you want to have intention to it, you can. I think we need a little more color right here. I want that to come down just a little farther. And nicely that fills in. And we'll make our dark. And this Arteza doesn't really have to be thinned out. You don't need much more water in your brush than you would for a fully fluid crafter's paint with this. Again, it's kind of being, there's a little bit of experimenting when it comes to doing clouds. You don't want your darkness to go into your light parts. Try to avoid that as much as possible. This brush cleaned out, we'll put some more highlight on that. highlight right there. Maybe it's got a highlight there. Maybe. We'll start out with a highlight there. Maybe it's, I like that. Swirling motion going on. Try not to take that highlight all the way away. So there you go. You got a cloud directly on a prime canvas, which you're probably not going to do very often. You're probably going to have your sky laid in and then put your clouds in. But that's kind of what it would look like on a dry pre-primed canvas. This is getting into the wet on wet. These are both with the liquid crafters, and you got a thicker bottled, and like I said, that one kind of acts like an oil. Even though I learned my technique from oil painters, my adjustments don't completely work with oils, but you still get that indication of a cloud there. And then we went with the Arteza, which is a little more fluid, doesn't take any more moisture in your brush than the liquid crafters. Now, another YouTuber that I watch, he's an oil painter, and he's got his three P's. And so I've kind of developed the 3 Ds when it comes to acrylic painting, and that's dampness. You gotta have the right amount of dampness in your brush to keep that paint workable. And you see that dried pretty quick because I forgot to wet the brush, and it blended pretty good. That's kind of what I'm used to, even though it didn't turn out as good with the normal dampness that I would use. And of course, you got to get into a thicker paint. It requires a little more moisture in your brush, but it takes longer to dry, so you got to be careful there. It'll run real easy on you. This one didn't take any more than these. Matter of fact, more than these. It ran a little bit, but I was able to fix it. See, dampness is key. If your brush doesn't have the proper dampness, your acrylic's going to dry too fast and not be workable. And then drive. And oil painters talk about pressure, and that's what I'm talking about with the word drive. But it's not so much pressure of your brush. And a lot of times you will use that light touch that the oil painters use. Generally, you've got to use more pressure to drive that paint where you want it to go because it dries so fast. And then, of course, your determination. If you're not determined enough to learn how to do it, you're not ever going to get good at it. So, stay determined to learn it, and your skills will improve. I've actually done better than this on some of my first few than I have lately. So you can't expect it to always turn out right either. But there you have it. I gave you the technique. It's the same basic technique as oil painting. I'm getting up out of this brush. Same basic technique as oil painting. You're just kind of almost writing in cursive. Put your main highlight color in there. And then you try not to take that line that you made completely away. Blend down with circular motions as lightly as the paint will move. Same thing with lifting up. That kind of feathers out your top without taking your highlight away. And then just make your brush strokes match the rest of the paint. Use that same technique on all of these, and as you can see, I got a different result. I would be more satisfied with that result if I had gotten it this way, because this way is more likely the way I'm going to do it. Not happy with that result at all. Doesn't look like the kind of cloud I was going for. That was a little more what I was going for. Based off of the darker blue, it wound up looking like a storm cloud. Now, if you've got your canvas primed in white and you're putting a light coat on there, not trying to make it stand out, you'll get closer to that with this.